Okay, welcome back, everyone. Joshua Ford here, and today we have a very special interview or slash interviews on Slate today with our artists and illustrators for A Story of the Batman. We have with us Jaxson Derr and Kae Richardson. So they have been awesome in this project. Like they're literally the backbone of this project. I couldn't have done it without them. Originally, it's supposed to be like a stop motion, but I didn't have time to do a stop motion. And I was like, what if I just like pay people to do this for me? And they were down to do it. So it's been fun. Jaxson, I hired back in actually it was like a year ago from today, kind of. It was January 11th of 2023. So he was here first and he was doing originally all of the sketches, inks, and colors up until about I want to say the Batcave scene, like that you guys will see in the video slash comic pages. All the pages up until around page 20-30 range have been by Jaxson, and then we brought in Kae in July of 2023, July 10th of 2023, and she has just been an amazing colorist and has set the tone quite literally. So it's been a really fun collaboration. It's been awesome working with these talented people, and we're gonna get to know them a little bit more. So thank you guys for hopping on the call. And Jaxson, I guess I'll start with you, and I'll ask this: since you're an artist, I'm guessing you were drawing since you were like a kid, things like that. What kind of made you, or like when did you start doing art, and what kind of made you go, I'm kind of good at this. Maybe I should try to make something out of this.
So it's funny because I've gotten this question quite a few times, and it's always a very unsatisfying answer because there was never a moment where I decided I wanted to draw. It was always something that I liked or that I was like kind of creatively inclined. I was always dozing off into my own space and like being creative. So there was never really a moment where I decided I wanted to, you know, do art and kind of have that be a professional future for me. But I do remember one instance where my dad had recorded a documentary called The Pixar Story on like our TV when I was really, really young. And I ended up watching that and realized like I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I always thought of it as a passion, but not necessarily as a job. And then that was the first instance where I was like, oh my gosh, like these movies require people like me to make them happen, and I can make a living out of it. So, although I'm a big superhero guy, I've always been a big animation guy as well. And I think the Pixar Story and like the idea that I could do it for a living really helped enforce that passion into becoming something practical for me.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I actually know of the Pixar Story. I watched it in my college video production class. So that was a pretty good movie there, and that's a cool. I'd say that's a satisfying answer, Jaxson. I'll accept it. So, yeah. And for Kay, I know you are also a professional colorist as well. So, kind of what got your start into art, and what made you kind of want to take that next step with it.
I guess I would say it's kind of similar to Jaxson. Like, I just always was into creating things, and I just kind of enjoyed the general process um, of making things. And as a kid, I obviously was into comics and anime and manga and video games. And I can't remember a time where I wasn't like trying to like make my own comics or like make up characters with their own like backstories and stuff. In terms of career path, I guess I would say I was never really the kind of person that like was good at doing things I didn't like doing. So
Mhm.
I kind of always knew like a regular career wasn't really gonna be for me. And so I guess throughout my life, I really tried to optimize for doing things that I both enjoyed and that I could like sustain doing for a long period of time without getting like bored.
Right.
And so I kind of like tried a bunch of different stuff. I ended up actually dropping out of college because I didn't really enjoy what they were trying to teach me in college. And I kind of just tried a bunch of different forms of art and worked crappy minimum wage jobs for a little bit. And then eventually I kind of found my way back into comics through doing digital art and really kind of realizing that the part I enjoy the most is the coloring, and I would always look forward to doing the coloring. And so I decided to try and really focus on that, and eventually made my comic coloring portfolio and started doing that professionally.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I kind of like how, you know what you want, so you just kind of like go for it and get it. Like, I think that's a cool thing to do because it's like not a lot of people realize that early. And then when they do realize it's like, oh, I have the choice to do that. So I'm glad it's been working out for you, and that you've built up that portfolio in order to like, get the career and the plan that you want. So that's really cool. And I'll ask on the same note, Kay. Like you said, you tried like different forms of art and you landed on coloring for like comics. So what makes you like coloring comics so much, I guess? Like what's your process when it comes to like um not process, but what kind of like I guess what kind of makes you like it so much, I suppose.
I don't really know how to describe it. Like I had a few jobs doing like kids books, and I also had a job doing like character concepts, and I would kind of find that like doing those types of jobs really was hard for me. Like I have no idea how Jaxson does what he does, where he just like takes the text from the script and like turns it into like art, but I found that I really enjoyed the coloring aspect and the rendering of like light and shadow, and that came a lot more naturally to me. And so I decided to just specialize in that basically.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, you definitely do a good job of that for sure. It's uh, like every time I see a page, it's just like it just pops up off my phone. I'm like, this is amazing. So it's been fun to see each page come to life, like at each stage, basically. So yeah. And for Jaxson, with you and your journey through your art, kind of like because I knew you through like your Instagram page, basically. So I've seen all like the superhero art and stuff that you've done. Has that always been kind of like your main art style, or have you like kind of gone through different stages, I suppose, of things that you like working with?
I suppose it's not so much stages as in I'll drift out of one and into another. I would just constantly pick up more and more things. So that's one of the things now where it's like people will like look at my comic book type art and then they'll see like a Photoshop poster, or then they'll look at like traditional work and all this kind of stuff. So it's not something where I would ever fade in and out of something. I kind of would pick up different styles as I went along. But the one that stayed the most and the one that I, will always love is like traditional. I think everyone, almost everybody starts off drawing traditionally. So it's definitely something that I would say I'm most familiar with. But digital is just so fast that and you can do more with digital, arguably, that I think I tend to lean that way more now professionally, but traditional is where I feel most calm and most like at home in a weird way when it comes to like making art. But it always like I'm always constantly fading in and out of stuff, whether it be traditional or digital or superheroes or animation or original concepts. I kind of am all over the place all the time.
Right. Yeah. It is evident that you are like going from thing to thing, but the thing is it's like each one is like really good, and it's like I
Thank
could
you.
tell that you like spend a lot of time like honing your craft in it. And with that being said, like going from like different style to different style and doing all this different stuff, how do you kind of like, or how have you kind of like honed in your skills, or had to like adjust to each thing to make sure that you can, um, do all of those things, but have like a nice balance, I suppose, or just like to make sure each is like where you want them to be, I guess.
It all has to do with practice. It's never like it's weird because um anytime anyone wants to get better at something, they always say to like practice it, never stop doing it. And it's the thing where I've always loved creating art, that it never felt like a job and it never felt like practice for me. I was just constantly doing it because I didn't know what I would do if I like wasn't being creative. So I think it has to do with constant like well, just consistency in terms of like how to maintain those styles and everything. Like in college, depending on the artistic project they would have me do, I would purposefully try and change styles so that I was working on multiple things at once. Like when you're in school, especially when it's like middle school, if you're in like an art class, chances are they won't have all the fancy like digital drawing tablets that you can practice on and that kind of thing, or you've never probably even like touched one before. So in that sense, depending on the environment that you're in, I would like purposefully change it up as much as I could so that I was constantly keeping balance and keeping on track with multiple things at once.
I gotcha. That sounds pretty smart. You know, you have that in the back of your mind. You know, like I have to stand my toes to do all this stuff. But I like that way of thinking, though. It does seem like you would get better doing something like that. So that's pretty cool. And Kay, next question I'll ask you is kind of like, um, as you're like a professional colorist, you also have like your processes and like coloring a page. So like when you get like, you know, a blank page that like maybe Jackson's drawn or someone else has drawn, kind of like what steps do you take like in determining the colors that are needed, like for the tone and setting and things like that? Kind of how do you set that up when you look at a blank slate essentially?
Um, right. Well, the first thing I look at is obviously like the script, and if we've had any discussions beforehand about like kind of what time of day or like what types of light sources there are going to be, I'll always have to take that into consideration first. And then the second thing I'll look at is kind of where is the focus supposed to be? And so where should I be putting like the main amount of detail on the page, and maybe highlighting that either with contrast or with color or lighting. And then I'll usually I'll do like the flats, which is basically the most tedious part of the process, where you like separate everything so you can then select it and color it after. And during the flats process is usually where I kind of figure out like the base colors that I want everything to be. And so everything usually starts very dark, but it is like the base colors that I want everything to kind of have. And then from there, I'll just kind of go in and I'll light everything based on what I've already kind of decided the main light source is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, obviously any tweaks needed, I'll do that at the end. Sometimes I'll like just let it sit for a few hours and like come back to it, and then I'll kind of realize like, oh, I need to change this or I need to change this.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get like even the sitting, like having it sit for a few hours and coming back to it. Like I do the same thing with like video editing sometimes, because I'll be editing for like hours on end and then I'll be like, okay, let me step away and then look back at it, especially with like audio editing, because I'll get stuck like listening to like the same 2 seconds for like minutes straight. I'm like, this just doesn't sound right. And then I'll just have to like stop and go back. So that makes sense in like art too, you know, because it may look a bit better when you come back, or you may see something that you want to tweak. So I get that too. So, and Jackson, next question is for you. With this project, you were the first artist I reached out to. That you were the first artist that like popped in my head. I was like gonna create a list and everything. I'm like, okay, if he says no, then I'll go to this person next. But I didn't really create a list. I just had like you at the top there. Like, what kind of made you like agree to work on this project? And yeah, like what kind of made you want to like take on something like this, I suppose?
Well, it was the easiest yes I've ever said working on a project because the whole thing is like I love comic book art and I love like Batman and Spider-Man are like my two favorites, which are I know very unique takes about superheroes and who likes them. But like that's always been like an interest of mine ever since I was very young. And something I did on Instagram a lot was not only doing comic book art, but specifically like if there was a certain amount of hype or interest surrounding a movie that hadn't come out yet, it would kind of in my brain like give me the opportunity to like fantasize in an artistic way where I could say like maybe a character would look like this or maybe like something like this would happen. So like I'm always thinking about what future projects would look like, whether it be like a superhero film or something like that. So whenever you came to me about this project, and like one of my dreams has been to work on like a Batman comic book, and it also happens to be somewhat in line to the Batman film, which I adore. Um, it was just such a easy thing to slide into because I was already thinking about like, ooh, what would happen in the next movie? And then lo and behold, you like present me with this beautiful script, and I'm like, oh my god, like this I need to draw all of this right now. So it was never something that was a kind of a hard decision for me, to be honest. And on top of that, like if someone were if Warner Brothers and DC were to ask me to do a Batman comic book and they gave me a script and the script was awful, I might say no, but I would probably say yes anyway just because
Right.
of it's Batman. But I feel like in this case, not only is it Batman, but it's truly like a really really tight great story. So the like Kay mentioned earlier, like being a little bit perplexed on like how I can like read a script and then just create art based off of that and like figure out the panel structure and like how all that works. But like I constantly think like that when I'm watching a movie. I'm constantly thinking about like, oh, this looks like this, and like whenever I outline different pages for the comic, I'll talk about like I won't say this panel will look like this. Sometimes I'll say like the shot is going to be like this, like a point of view, like because I think of it like a film, you know. So it not only was the script great, it had to deal with Batman, but like I felt really comfortable in that space. I find that the hardest thing for me to do is to initiate an original idea. So whenever you give me a script that has all these beautiful things, all I have to do is draw them and display them in a way that like makes sense visually. So it was. I'm not saying it's never not challenging. There are definitely some pages where there's a lot going on that needs to hit in the right places, but I feel like collaboratively we three work so well together that no matter how daunting a page can be, it ends up I think working out really well. So
Right. I think that's a great point. I do appreciate what you said about the script and everything. That means a lot to me. Um, but yeah, like some pages are more difficult than others. And like you said, it's just been a really good collaboration. Like the way that you, first of all, like will outline the page. And for those watching, I have a document where I put out the script and it's kind of like I call it like a blocked version of it where I kind of like separate it by page and we'll go through kind of like on a monthly basis or a as needed scenely basis and say like this is the tone for this scene, this is the points that we want to hit. And so we just do a lot of discussion on like each page, basically each scene, just so like each page will like hit what we intended to hit. And it really has like it's been really fun seeing it come to life because it's been like I don't know, it's just so cool. Like, because obviously I wrote it and I'm just like sending it out to you guys and being like, okay. And I just like kind of expect it to be like good because you guys have shown us like you just make it look so good. And it's like I could just rave about it like all day long on like how you guys are just like able to create it perfectly and everything like that. It's just like a credit to like the work that you guys have put in over the years. And it's like just really cool to see it play out in this comic. So I definitely appreciate um both of your skills and how it's pretty much meshed together. And like on that same note, kind of like Kay, you came in like about a few months after, well, I guess 6 months after Jackson. Yeah. And so like we were already like into the script and everything. So kind of what made you want to like jump into this project when we were like, throwing out a life saver to be like, help us color this comic.
Well, first of all, I believe you reached out to me because you saw something of my work on Instagram.
Yes.
And before I hadn't read the script or anything. I just like read your email and you seem like really nice.
Good
Good
job.
vibes. Yeah. And that's important. Like sometimes like I don't know, Jackson, you probably know like people will message you and like you can just tell they don't respect artists at all. And I didn't get any of that from you. You seem really nice. And then I obviously found out that Jackson was working on it, and I looked through his portfolio, and he's amazing. Obviously, was blown away by your work. So I was really excited to be able to work with you too. And then I read the script, and the script was really great. And I really liked your overall vision for Bruce. It shows a side that like maybe we wouldn't normally see in the movies. And I really appreciated that. And I think it read really well. And obviously I also thought it was be cool to work on like a Batman related project. And I had never really worked on a project that was like inspired by or related to a movie. So I thought that would be a really, really great learning opportunity for me because it'd be something really different from what I've worked on in the past. And so I think honestly, together we have been able to create a really unique aesthetic that's kind of like a mix of our own ideas blended with the Batman film.
Right. Yeah, no, it's cool because what you did at the very beginning, you did like you watched the movie again and did like a, I forget what you called it, but it was like a tone
Oh
assessment or
yeah, I like
something like that.
analyze the colors and stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh wow, she's diving right into it and doing that, because then you sent like a huge email about it. I'm like, this is what I wanted right here. This is great. You guys like have a really good like, you always like put your best effort forward with this, which is it shows in these pages, and it's like just been really fun. And yeah, Kay, I did find your art through Instagram because I saw this, it was like a Robin post, and Robin's my favorite superhero, so naturally I was like, this is cool. And like at first I didn't even know like you were the artist, because I saw it was like some guy's Instagram page, and I didn't read the caption at first. I'm like, oh, this is this guy's art, he colored this. But then I like opened the caption like a few minutes later after like looking through the rest of his page, and I'm like, this doesn't look like similar to that one right there. So I looked at the caption, it was like colored by Kae Richardson. I was like, oh, that's who I need to call and reach out to. So yeah, it was kind of funny in that sense there. But I'll just ask like a few more questions here. Um, Back to Jaxson. Obviously, this is like a superhero comic and things like that. So the people want to know, Jaxson. Obviously, your favorite superheroes are Batman and Spider-Man. But what would you say are like your favorite kind of like superhero or like even television cinematic projects that you like, whether it's like a TV show, movie, what's kind of like up there for you?
Well, but aside from superhero stuff like Spider-Man and Batman and all that good stuff, I always have loved animation because I feel like it's so easily accessible to so many people, and just emotionally and like entertainment wise, if you do it right. So I love movies like Toy Story, and um, recently with like DreamWorks, they made the second Puss in Boots movie, which oh my god, like who thought that was gonna be as great as it I've always been like an animation person, and that's never gone away. Superhero stuff I'm super into. I like rom-coms, you know. I watched The Holiday again recently, and it's great. I think in terms of film and media, I feel like I'm very diverse. I tend to like watch a lot of different things, whether it be like a musical or an action movie or anything like that. I wish I had the attention span to read long books, but I don't. so so
Yeah.
I tend to lean towards TV and movies and things like that. But that's a sign if I can sit down and read like a really long book, it's a sign that I really like it, because otherwise I wouldn't put in the time to do something like that. Plus, I'm a very visual person, so like I'd be much more interested in watching like a Pixar short that has no lines than like reading something that has no visuals. So I tend to lean that way. So although I love superheroes, I feel like I'm very diverse in terms of my tastes and stuff.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, I'm kind of the same way now with books too. Like I used to be like an avid reader, like I would blow through chapter books and everything, but now it's like I don't know, I just like there's this one book, it's a really good book, but it's taken me like 3 months so far to like read it, because I just like will read like maybe two chapters, and then like it'll be 2 weeks later I'll read it like another chapter. I just maybe it's because I'm working on this project. Maybe that's why. I'll blame it on that. But no, it's also funny that you said you like romantic comedies and stuff, because like I watch a lot of like, dramatic, like soapy and like family feely like TV shows. Like I don't know if you know the like sitcom Frasier. That's not really like one of them, but like sappy shows like that have like just good like connections between like the cast and stuff. Like I eat that stuff up. Like, and I feel like it's kind of evident through like the scripts and stuff of like most of the stories that I write, because it's just like I just like getting to like the emotions and stuff out of it. Like there aren't that many like fight scenes in this comic. Like it's really just like a lot of like talking essentially, which don't be like scared off from it. There are like good action scenes and a lot, and the art is like really good. But like it's like I feel like the heaviest hitting scenes are just like the scenes where just like the characters are just like going through it, and it's not like someone's getting like punched off of a building, which does happen. But yeah, no, I totally get that too. And Kay, kind of same question as at you. What are kind of like your favorite things in media to watch or to enjoy?
So like obviously outside of like Batman and stuff, and superhero related stuff, I really am into like lore heavy world building kind of universe type stuff. I'm really enjoying the Monstrous comics right now. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's the world building is amazing. And I also really enjoy a comic called Kill 6 Billion Demons. It's a web comic actually, but like I love it from both like a story perspective and like a color perspective, because the colors in that comic are like kind of crazy and out there, but like they just work. They're like so simple but so like bright and obnoxious, but like it just works, and I really appreciate that. And I also, another comic that I really enjoy is like slice of life type comics, I guess. And I would say a really influential one for me is Blankets. It kind of like I kind of found it in a time where like I wasn't really doing art and I wasn't really doing anything related to that, and somebody gave it to me and I read it and it really made me have like a different perspective on things. So like that's a really close to my heart kind of comic slash graphic novel. And I just want to mention, like Jackson mentioned, like reading books. I literally got into comics because I had a teacher in 8th grade that like gave me comics to read instead of books, because I just like wouldn't read the books in class. So he was like, all right, you can read like these comics instead. And then I found a love for comics through that. So
Nice.
yeah,
Sounds
and in
like a
terms of like,
good
I
teacher.
guess like movies, like I also have a short attention span, so I don't really watch a lot of movies actually.
Mhm.
I really like comics and graphic novels because I can just like sit down and read like 10 pages at a time if I want, and then kind of like piece out and do something else and come back to it.
Right.
But in terms of like shows, I am very into the Expanse series. Again, I guess for like the world building aspects. Very cool series. I want to read the books, but like again, I'm intimidated by books. But someday I like might listen to audiobooks actually. I don't know if you guys do audiobooks, but that's
Yeah,
a good way.
I used to listen to a lot of like podcasts like when I was in college. I too am technically a college dropout. I I relate there, but when I would take like the 3 hour drive to like my university, I would often listen to like these audio stories, kind of like some of them weren't like based off of books that people like wrote. It was just kind of like intended for like an audio story, which is kind of what kind of influenced me a bit with like this project, along with seeing like a digital comic on YouTube. But yeah, I definitely have checked out a lot of audiobooks as well, because it's sort of, it's like a cool experience. It's very like immersive in that way. So yeah.
Yeah, especially if they have the people like doing the voices of the different characters. Like that's my favorite.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And alrighty. I think I'm gonna ask one more question. Yeah, I guess I'll ask one more. Um so like the question I'll usually finish with, Jackson, I'll shoot this at you first. Um, in your life, is there something that you kind of like remind yourself of to say like, oh, if I'm having a bad day, I can like remember this and kind of hold on to this truth that I found to be true, basically, type thing?
Well, for me, I think the biggest things that might even affect the day to that point, or just day to day, what is a constant struggle for me is anxiety. Like I deal with that a lot constantly. I had my first major anxiety attack whenever I was in third grade, and since then it's been a roller coaster. So it's something I deal with on the daily. And funnily enough, it is art that has always kind of been that way where I can feel like I can safely and in a fun way like self-express and communicate in a certain to a certain extent. So anytime I'm having kind of a rough day or something's not going my way, I always know that there's a blank page waiting for me at home that I can kind of spew my emotions onto, and then I'll feel better. So it's like it's like a Kleenex for my heart is what paper is. But yeah, so that's always going to be an outlet for me where I can be creative and where I feel like I can be myself unapologetically. I think that art's always going to be that thing for me.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you are using that as an outlet for you. And it's always cool to have like a passion like that to where it can kind of, like block out all the other noise. Cause it's like that for like writing with me kind of like, cause I also have like anxiety, depression. And it's like, that's like how I kind of like get my thoughts out. It's not like I don't really like journal that much anymore, which my therapist would be like, that's not good. But like it's like I will like write these stories and just like put my like emotions into other characters and kind of just like play out their lives and see how like they would like react in certain situations, and for whatever reason that just like rubs my brain the right way, and I end up like feeling better at the end of the day. So I can definitely relate to using that creative outlet as a way to kind of like relieve that stress and anxiety that you feel. So yeah. And Kay, kind of same question to you. What would you say is kind of like a truth that you hold on to or something that you do to remind yourself to get through bad days and things like that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess it's similar to your guys's. Like, I deal with stress and anxiety too. Um, and yeah, just channeling that through my work or through my hobbies. It really helps you get through those hard times. And also just kind of remembering if I'm getting hung up on stuff, like if I'm getting up on my work, just reminding myself to not be perfectionist and that the hard work you put in and consistent work is gonna help everything pay off in the end, even if it's hard right now. And I think that's a lesson that I've learned kind of through comics and through art, and it's something that I apply to every aspect of my life now.
Right. No, I think that's really important, like cuz it can seem like putting one foot in the other is like a big thing, but when you remind yourself of like the ultimate goal and like that it will pay off eventually, I think that's an important thing to hold on to too. So I'm glad you've had that mindset and that has been helping you out so far. So yeah. um well, that's all the questions I have slash info I have. I mean, I could say a lot more, but I won't, because like this video has probably gone on a while and I'm sure people want to know more, but we'll have more stuff out there. But I appreciate your guys' time, Jaxson and Kay. I'm sure the people watching this have enjoyed every second. I've enjoyed every second of it. And yeah, you guys can definitely keep um watching our videos, like keep tabs on our Instagram, like follow our Instagram. That's what I wanted to say, because we'll be putting out like all these behind the scenes stuff, promotional stuff leading up to the release of the project. It may seem like it's far away, but we'll have so many things out there that you'll be like, oh, I don't even care about the release, I just like all this stuff. But no, yeah, again, thank you guys for your time. And yeah, I'll see you YouTubers next time.